Welcome to Shadows of the Marquise. This channel is a sanctuary for lovers of intense and dramatic historical romance. Here you'll find narrated stories that explore arranged marriages, forbidden loves, secret passions, and the eternal struggle between duty and heart. With aristocratic settings, complex characters, and raw emotions, each video transports you to a world of luxury, secrets, and redemption, where disdain can turn into desire, and love has the power to change destinies. If you're passionate about Victorian dramas, Regency plots, and immersive narratives worthy of historical novels, this is the place for you. Today we bring you a story that will shatter your heart into 1,000 pieces. Imagine discovering you're pregnant with your husband's child and running to share the joyous news, only to find him in the arms of his mistress. Now imagine being accused of the very betrayal you witnessed, cast out into the winter cold while carrying his heir, left to die in a crumbling ruin. 5 years pass. You've survived against all odds. You've rebuilt your life from ashes. And then he appears, the man who destroyed you, desperate for forgiveness, only to discover that his son, his heir, calls another man father. This is the story of Lady Arabella Thornfield, the Duke of Ashbourne who condemned her, and the gentle doctor who saved her life. It's a tale of devastating betrayal, impossible redemption, and a little boy caught between two fathers. Will love be enough to heal wounds this deep, or are some sins simply unforgivable? Stay with us until the very end, because what happens will leave you breathless. The rain fell in sheets that November evening in 1813, turning the cobblestones of London into rivers of darkness. Inside Ashbourne Hall, the grand Georgian mansion of pale limestone that housed the Duke of Ashbourne, 1,000 candles burned in crystal chandeliers, their golden light bouncing off marble floors and gilt-framed portraits of stern ancestors. The house was a monument to wealth and power, with its 3 stories, 50 rooms, and gardens that stretched for acres. But for all its opulence, it had always felt cold to Lady Arabella Thornfield, like a beautiful mausoleum where she was slowly being entombed alive. Tonight, however, none of that mattered. Arabella's heart was so full of joy she thought it might burst from her chest. She stood in the mahogany-paneled hallway outside her husband's study, one delicate hand pressed against her still flat stomach, the other clutching the physician's letter that confirmed what she had suspected for weeks. She was pregnant. After 2 years of marriage, 2 years of silent prayers and desperate hope, she was finally carrying the heir to the Ashbourne dukedom. Her chestnut brown hair, usually pinned in an elaborate coiffure befitting a duchess, had come slightly loose in her rush home from the physician's office. Her emerald green eyes sparkled with unshed tears of happiness. She wore a gown of pale blue silk that Nathaniel had once said matched her eyes perfectly, chosen this morning in the hope that he might notice, that he might smile at her the way he used to when they were first married, before the distance had crept in like winter frost. Surely this would change everything. Surely this miraculous news would make Nathaniel look at her again with love instead of that polite indifference that had become his default expression. Surely he would hold her, kiss her, tell her he was happy. Her hand trembled as she reached for the brass door handle. She didn't knock, why would she? She was his wife, the Duchess of Ashbourne. She had every right to share this joy with him immediately. The door swung open silently on well-oiled hinges, and in that single moment, Arabella's entire world shattered into 1,000 irreparable pieces. Nathaniel stood by his massive desk, his black hair disheveled in a way she had never seen, his perfectly tied cravat loosened and hanging askew. His storm-gray eyes, those intense, almost silver eyes that had once looked at her with such warmth, were wide with shock. But it wasn't his appearance that made Arabella's breath catch in her throat like a physical blow. It was the woman in his arms. Lady Constance Marlowe, with her flame-red hair cascading down her back in deliberate disarray, her emerald-green dress unlaced at the back, her pale hands clutching Nathaniel's shirt with possessive familiarity. They had been kissing. The evidence was written all over their faces, swollen lips, labored breathing. The guilt that flashed across Nathaniel's features before it hardened into something far worse. Anger, cold, terrible anger. "Arabella," he said, his voice like winter frost cutting through the warm air of the study, "what are you doing here?" She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The joy that had filled her moments ago curdled into something toxic in her chest, spreading through her veins like poison. She took a step backward, her hand instinctively moving to protect the tiny life growing inside her. A life that suddenly felt infinitely more precious and infinitely more vulnerable. I had news, she whispered, her voice breaking like thin ice. I thought you would want to know. Double quotes. Constance laughed. A sound like breaking glass that seemed to echo off the book-lined walls. Her green eyes, cold and calculating as a cat's, swept over Arabella with undisguised contempt. Oh, how precious. The little wife comes running to her husband like a puppy seeking attention. Tell me, Arabella, did you really think he loved you? Did you really think a man like Nathaniel could be satisfied with someone as plain and boring as you? He needs a real woman, not a timid little mouse. Constance, enough, Nathaniel said, but there was no real conviction in his voice. No genuine defense of his wife. He didn't rush to Arabella's side. He didn't push Constance away. He simply stood there, all 6 feet and 3 inches of aristocratic hauteur, looking at Arabella as if she were an inconvenience, a problem to be solved. I'm pregnant, Arabella said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them, before she could think about whether this was the right moment. I came to tell you that I'm carrying your child, our child, the heir you've been waiting for. The silence that followed was deafening. Nathaniel's face went pale, then flushed with something that looked like rage. His jaw clenched, his hands curling into fists at his sides. Constance's eyes narrowed, her red lips curving into a smile that made Arabella's blood run cold, a smile that spoke of secrets and schemes and something deeply, terribly wrong. My child? Nathaniel repeated slowly, his voice dangerously quiet. Are you certain it's mine, Arabella? The question hit her like a physical blow, stealing the air from her lungs. She staggered backward, her hand gripping the doorframe for support, her legs suddenly weak beneath her. What, Dot? What are you saying? I'm saying, Nathaniel continued, his voice growing harder with each word, each syllable like a nail being driven into her heart, that you've been spending an awful lot of time with Lord Pemberton lately. I've seen the way he looks at you. I've heard the whispers at White's, the speculation in the drawing rooms. People are talking, Arabella. They're saying that my wife has been indiscreet. Whispers? Arabella's voice rose in desperation, tears already streaming down her face. What whispers? Nathaniel, Lord Pemberton is your friend. He's been kind to me because you've been ... She gestured helplessly at Constance, at the scene before her. Because you've been with her. He was being polite, nothing more. I've never been anything but faithful to you. Don't you dare turn this around on me, Nathaniel snapped, taking a step toward her, his tall frame suddenly menacing in the candlelight. His gray eyes, which she had once thought beautiful, now looked like storm clouds ready to unleash their fury. I have proof, Arabella. Letters, love letters between you and Pemberton, full of passionate declarations and plans to meet in secret. That's impossible. They were found in your writing desk, Constance interjected smoothly, examining her nails with studied indifference, as if discussing something as mundane as the weather, hidden beneath your other correspondence. Really, Arabella, if you're going to conduct an affair, you should be more careful about where you keep the evidence. Any servant could have found them. Arabella felt the world tilting beneath her feet, the ornate Persian rug seeming to shift like the deck of a ship in a storm. This couldn't be happening. This was a nightmare. She would wake up any moment in her bed, and none of this would be real. I don't know what letters you're talking about, she said, her voice shaking so badly she could barely form the words. I never wrote to Lord Pemberton. I never betrayed you, Nathaniel. I have been faithful to you every single day of our marriage, even when you ... double quotes, her voice broke completely. Even when you clearly haven't been faithful to me. Liar, Nathaniel said, and the single word cut deeper than any blade could have. I trusted you. I gave you my name, my home, my protection, my fortune. I elevated you from a mere baron's daughter to a duchess. And this is how you repay me? By cuckolding me? By trying to pass off another man's bastard as my heir? It's your child? Arabella screamed, her composure shattering completely, tears streaming down her face in rivers. Nathaniel, please, you have to believe me. I don't know anything about any letters. Someone is lying to you. Can't you see that? Can't you see what's happening here? But Nathaniel's face was set in stone. His jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping, his eyes cold and unforgiving as a winter sky. I want you out of this house, he said quietly, and somehow the quiet made it worse than if he had shouted. Tonight, within the hour. What? Arabella's legs gave out and she sank to her knees on the cold marble floor, her silk dress pooling around her like water. Nathaniel, please, I am your wife. I'm carrying your child. You can't just... I can do whatever I want, he interrupted, his voice like ice. I'm the Duke of Ashbourne, one of the most powerful men in England, and you are nothing. You were nothing when I married you, and you're nothing now. I'm sending you to the northern estate in Scotland. You'll stay there until the child is born. If it looks like me, perhaps I'll reconsider. But I will not have you here parading around London making a fool of me in front of society. The northern estate? Arabella whispered, horror dawning in her emerald eyes. But that's abandoned. There's no one there. No servants, no— Then you'll learn to fend for yourself, Nathaniel said coldly, turning his back on her as if she had already ceased to exist. Perhaps it will teach you some humility. Perhaps it will teach you the consequences of betrayal. Guards, he called out, and 2 footmen appeared at the door immediately, their faces carefully blank. Escort Lady Arabella to her chambers. She's to pack 1 trunk. She leaves within the hour. The journey to Scotland was a nightmare that Arabella would remember in fragments for the rest of her life. The carriage wheels churning endlessly through mud and snow. The biting cold that seeped through her woolen cloak no matter how tightly she wrapped it around herself. The way her body ached as they traveled for days without proper rest, stopping only to change horses at grim roadside inns where the innkeepers looked at her with suspicion and pity. The driver, a hard-faced man named Grimshaw, had been given orders to deliver her to the northern estate as quickly as possible. And he followed those orders with grim efficiency, barely speaking to her, treating her like cargo rather than a duchess. By the time they reached the Scottish border, Arabella was feverish and weak, her body rebelling against the stress and the constant motion. The morning sickness that had been mild before was now violent and debilitating, leaving her retching into a bucket until there was nothing left inside her. She could barely keep down water, let alone the hard bread and cheese that was all Grimshaw would provide. Her pale skin had taken on a grayish cast, her emerald eyes were sunken, her delicate hands trembled constantly. When they finally reached the estate 5 days after leaving London, Arabella's heart sank into a despair so deep she thought she might drown in it. The house was a crumbling stone structure that looked like it hadn't been inhabited in decades. Windows were broken, their glass long since shattered. The roof sagged ominously in the middle with holes where slates had fallen away. Weeds had overtaken what might once have been a garden, growing wild and tangled around the foundation. The front door hung crooked on its hinges. This wasn't an estate. This was a ruin. This was a death sentence. Grimshaw set her single trunk on the ground and climbed back onto the driver's seat, eager to be rid of her in this cursed place. "This is the address His Grace provided," he said, not meeting her eyes. "The Ashbourne Northern property." "You can't leave me here alone," Arabella cried, stumbling out of the carriage, her legs weak beneath her. She fell to her knees in the mud, her dress soaking through immediately. "Please. I'll die here. I'm pregnant. Please don't leave me here." For a moment, something like pity flickered across Grimshaw's weathered face, but then he shook his head. "I'm sorry, my lady. I truly am. But if I disobey the Duke, I'll lose my position, have a family to feed." And with that, he drove away, leaving Arabella kneeling in the mud with 1 trunk and no hope. The first few days were the hardest, a blur of cold and hunger and desperate struggle. She found some old blankets that weren't too moth-eaten and made herself a nest in the least damaged room. She discovered a stream about half a mile from the house and hauled water back in a cracked bucket, the water sloshing out with every step. She ate the few provisions she had, brought some hard cheese, dried meat, a loaf of bread, rationing them carefully, knowing they wouldn't last more than a week. On the 4th night, as she lay shivering in her makeshift bed, Arabella felt the first cramp. It started low in her abdomen, a tightening sensation that made her gasp. Then another, and another, each one worse than the last. "No," she whispered into the darkness. "No, please, not yet. It's too soon," but her body didn't listen. The cramps grew worse, coming in waves that left her breathless and terrified. Blood. There was blood. She was losing the baby. She was losing the only thing she had left. She must have screamed, though she didn't remember it later. All she remembered was the pain, the fear, the certainty that she was going to die alone in this God-forsaken place. And then, like a miracle, there was light. A lantern, swinging through the darkness. Footsteps, running toward the house. A voice deep in concern calling out into the night. "Hello? Is someone there?" I heard screaming. The door burst open and a man appeared, silhouetted against the lantern light. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with golden blonde hair that caught the lamplight. He rushed to her side, his blue eyes widening in alarm as he saw her condition. "Good God," he breathed. "What are you doing here? This place is abandoned." He broke off as he saw the blood. "You're pregnant. And you're in labor, or miscarrying." "Help me," Arabella managed to gasp. "Please help me. My baby." "I'm a doctor," the man said, already moving with professional efficiency. "My name is James Whitmore. I was passing through when I heard you scream. We need to get you somewhere safe and warm. Can you hold on for me?" Arabella nodded, clinging to him like a lifeline. James scooped her up in his arms, blankets and all, and carried her through the cold night. He talked to her the whole time, his voice steady and calm, telling her she was going to be fine, that he would save her baby. His cottage, when they reached it, was everything the abandoned estate was not. Small but immaculate, with smoke rising from the chimney and warm light glowing in the windows. Inside it was cozy and welcoming, a fire burning cheerfully in the hearth, herbs hanging from the rafters, medical supplies neatly organized on shelves. James laid her on his own bed and immediately went to work. He examined her with gentle but sure hands, gave her something for the pain, something to stop the contractions. "The baby's heartbeat is strong," he said after what felt like hours, and Arabella nearly wept with relief. "You're dehydrated and malnourished, but I think we can save your child. But you need complete bed rest." "Thank you," Arabella whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You saved us." "Rest now," James said gently, pulling a warm blanket over her. "You're safe here, I promise." And for the first time in weeks, Arabella felt safe. She closed her eyes and let herself drift into unconsciousness, trusting this stranger with her life and the life of her unborn child. The winter that followed was the longest of Arabella's life, but also, in strange and unexpected ways, the most healing. James Whitmore proved to be everything Nathaniel was not: patient, kind, genuinely concerned for her welfare without expecting anything in return. He asked no questions about how she had ended up alone and pregnant in an abandoned house. He simply took care of her. As the weeks passed and Arabella regained her strength, she found herself wanting to help around the cottage. She couldn't simply lie in bed all day while James worked tirelessly. She started cooking meals, organizing his medical supplies, mending his clothes. It felt good to be useful, to have a purpose beyond simply surviving. "You don't have to do all this," James said one evening, coming home to find dinner waiting. "You're my patient, not my housekeeper. I need to do something," Arabella replied. "You've been so kind to me. This is the least I can do." James studied her with his warm blue eyes. "You're running from something," he said quietly. "Or someone." Arabella's hands stilled. "Yes," she admitted. "Do you want to talk about it?" She did. There was something about James that made her want to trust him. "I was married," she said slowly, "to a duke. He believed I had been unfaithful. He believed the child I'm carrying isn't his. So he sent me to that abandoned estate to have the baby alone." James's expression darkened. "What kind of man does that to his pregnant wife?" "A man who was deceived," Arabella said. "Someone planted false evidence. Letters that made it look like I was having an affair. He believed them instead of believing me." "His loss," James said simply. "Any man who could cast aside a woman like you is a fool." As winter gave way to spring, Arabella's belly grew round with her pregnancy. James monitored her health carefully, talking to the baby, his hand on her stomach. "You're going to love it here," he would say. "The sea is just over those hills. The wildflowers cover the meadows in summer." And slowly, Arabella began to suspect that James's feelings for her went deeper than friendship. She saw it in the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. She heard it in the gentle tone he used when speaking to her. And if she was being honest with herself, her feelings for him were changing too. It wasn't the passionate love she had felt for Nathaniel. It was something quieter, steadier, something that felt like coming home. The baby came on a stormy night in April. Arabella's labor was long and difficult, but James never left her side. He held her hand through every contraction, encouraged her when she wanted to give up. "You can do this," he kept saying. "You're the strongest woman I've ever met." And finally, as dawn broke over the Scottish hills, a baby's cry filled the cottage. "It's a boy," James said, his voice thick with emotion. He wrapped the infant in a clean blanket and placed him in Arabella's arms. A beautiful, healthy boy. Arabella looked down at her son and felt her heart crack open. He was perfect. Tiny and red-faced and perfect, with a shock of black hair, and when he opened his eyes, they were the same storm gray as his father's. "Lucian," she whispered. "His name is Lucian." "It's a good name," James said softly, looking at the baby with such tenderness that Arabella felt tears spring to her eyes. "James," she said, "I don't know how to thank you. You've saved our lives." "You don't need to repay me," James replied. "Just let me be part of your lives. Let me help you raise him. Let me love you both if you'll have me." Arabella looked at him, this good man who had asked for nothing and given everything. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, James. I'd like that very much." And so began their new life together. James courted her slowly, patiently, proving day after day that he was worthy of her trust. He doted on Lucian as if the boy were his own son, walking him when he cried at night, teaching him to crawl and then to walk. By the time Lucian was 2 years old, the village of Porthmere had accepted them as a family. Arabella never told anyone about her past as a duchess. She let that life die. She was no longer Lady Arabella Blackthorne, Duchess of Ashbourne. She was simply Arabella. She and James never formally married. She couldn't. Not when she was still legally married to Nathaniel, but they built a life together anyway, and Lucian thrived. He was a bright, curious child with his mother's gentle nature and James's kind heart. He loved helping in the garden, playing on the beach, listening to James's stories. And he adored James, calling him Papa from the moment he could speak. Every time Lucian said that word, Arabella felt a pang in her chest, because she knew the truth. Lucian's real father was a duke in London who had cast them aside, who had never even met his son. Sometimes, late at night, Arabella would wonder if Nathaniel ever thought about her, if he ever regretted what he had done, if he had discovered the truth about those forged letters. But then she would look at Lucian sleeping peacefully and at James reading by the fire, and she would push those thoughts away. This was her life now. This was her family. And she was happy. She didn't know that in London Nathaniel's world was falling apart. She didn't know that he had finally discovered the truth about Constance's lies, about the forged letters, about the innocent wife he had destroyed. She didn't know that he had been searching for her for 3 years, consumed by guilt and desperate for forgiveness. And she didn't know that he was about to find her. The day Nathaniel Blackthorne arrived in the village of Porthmere was unremarkable in every way except one. The sun was shining, making the sea sparkle like scattered diamonds. The fishing boats were coming in with their morning catch. Children were playing in the cobblestone streets. And Arabella was at the market, Lucian's small hand clasped in hers, buying vegetables for dinner. Lucian was chattering away as he always did, his voice bright and happy. He was 5 years old now, tall for his age, with that shock of black hair that never wanted to stay combed. His gray eyes sparkled with excitement as he told her about the shells he had found on the beach that morning. "Can I really go fishing with Papa this weekend?" Lucian asked. "He said I'm big enough now. If you promise to be careful and listen to everything he tells you," Arabella replied, smiling down at her son. "I promise. Papa says I'm very responsible for 5 years old." Lucian stopped mid-sentence, his attention caught by something behind Arabella. His eyes widened, his mouth falling open in childish awe. "Mama, look at that man's horse. It's huge. And so black." Arabella turned, a polite smile on her face. The smile froze on her lips, her heart stopped. Standing in the village square, looking completely out of place in his fine London clothes among the simple fishermen and farmers, was Nathaniel Blackthorne. He was dismounting from a massive black stallion, his movements stiff as if he had been riding for days. His dark hair was longer than she remembered, touching his collar. His face was thinner, harder, with new lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. He looked like he had aged a decade in 5 years. But those eyes, those storm-gray eyes that Lucian had inherited, were unmistakable. For a moment, Arabella couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Terror flooded through her. He had found her. After all this time, he had found her. Nathaniel's gaze swept across the market square and landed on her. She watched as recognition dawned on his face, watched as shock, joy, relief, and anguish flickered across his features. "Arabella," he breathed, and even from across the square she could hear the raw emotion in his voice. He started toward her, his long strides eating up the distance. Arabella's hand tightened on Lucian's. "Mama, you're hurting me," Lucian said, tugging at her hand. Arabella immediately loosened her grip. "We need to go home now, right now. But we haven't finished shopping. Now, Lucian." But Nathaniel was already there, standing before them, his chest heaving. Up close, Arabella could see how much he had changed. He looked haunted, tormented. His expensive clothes hung slightly loose on his frame. His hands were trembling. There were tears in his eyes. "Arabella," he said again, his voice cracking. "Thank God. I've been searching for her so long. I thought you might be dead." "I thought I'd had killed you. What are you doing here, Nathaniel?" Arabella's voice came out cold and hard. "I came to find you. To beg your forgiveness. To tell you that I know the truth. Arabella, I know about Constance. I know about the forged letters. I know you were innocent." Lucian was looking between them with confusion. "Mama, who is this man?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Nathaniel's gaze dropped to Lucian for the first time, and Arabella watched as the color drained from his face. She knew what he was seeing: the black hair, the gray eyes, the aristocratic features that were unmistakably Blackthorne. "This is ... double," quotes Nathaniel's voice failed him. He sank to his knees right there in the market square. "This is my son." "No," Arabella said sharply, pulling Lucian behind her. "No, he's not." "Arabella, please, you gave up any right to call him your son when you threw us away," Arabella hissed. "When you sent me to die in that ruin, when you called me a liar. Her voice broke and she stopped, fighting back tears. Nathaniel's face crumpled. I know. God, Arabella, I know. I have no excuse. What I did was unforgivable. But please, let me try to make it right, Mama. Lucian's voice was small and frightened. What's happening? Before Arabella could answer, another voice cut through the tension. Arabella? Is everything all right? James Whitmore was striding across the square, his medical bag in hand, his face creased with concern. He took in the scene at a glance: Arabella's pale face, Lucian's confusion, the stranger on his knees. Papa! Lucian broke free and ran to James, who caught him up immediately. Papa, there's a strange man and he's making Mama upset. The word Papa hit Nathaniel like a physical blow. Arabella watched as he staggered to his feet, his eyes fixed on James with an expression of absolute devastation. Papa? Nathaniel repeated hoarsely. He calls you Papa. James's eyes narrowed as he studied Nathaniel. He was an intelligent man. He had always known there was a husband somewhere. And now that husband was here, and the resemblance between him and Lucian was impossible to miss. I'm Dr. James Whitmore, James said carefully. And you are? Nathaniel Blackthorne, Nathaniel said, drawing himself up, Duke of Ashbourne, and Arabella's husband. A collective gasp went through the crowd. Arabella closed her eyes. Everyone knew now. Everyone knew she had been lying. Husband? James's voice was dangerously quiet. The husband who abandoned her, who sent her to die? I didn't know the estate was uninhabitable, Nathaniel said desperately. I thought there would be servants. You never meant. James's calm facade cracked. You sent your pregnant wife to a ruin in the middle of winter. If I hadn't found her when I did, she and the child would have died. Papa, why are you angry? Lucian asked, clinging to James's leg. Nathaniel looked at his son. I'm your father, he said brokenly. I'm your real father. No, you're not, Lucian said with a child's certainty. Papa James is my father. You're just a stranger. The words destroyed Nathaniel. He swayed on his feet. Arabella, please. He's my son. My heir. He's mine, Arabella said fiercely. Mine and James's. We raised him. We loved him. We were there for every moment of his life while you were in London, not even bothering to check if I was alive. I did check, Nathaniel shouted. I sent people as soon as I learned the truth. But you were gone. I've had investigators searching for 3 years, Arabella. 3 years of not knowing if you were alive, if my child was alive. And now you've found us, Arabella said coldly. Was it everything you hoped for? I'm sorry, Nathaniel said, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry. I know those words mean nothing, but please give me a chance. Let me know, my son. You want to talk about rights? Arabella screamed, and all the pain of 5 years came pouring out. You lost your rights when you believed a liar over your wife. When you sent me away. When you looked at me like I was nothing. She was sobbing now. James moved to her side, his arm around her shoulders. Mama's crying, Lucian said, his own eyes filling with tears. Papa, make the bad man go away. I'm not a bad man, Nathaniel said desperately. Lucian, please, I'm your father. I love you. I made a terrible mistake, but I want to fix it. Lucian looked at him with brutal honesty. You made my mama cry. Bad men make people cry. Papa James never makes Mama cry. The simple statement was devastating. Nathaniel bowed his head, his shoulders shaking. Your Grace, James said quietly. I think you should leave now. I'm not leaving, Nathaniel said, raising his head. Not until Arabella hears me out. Constance has been arrested. She confessed everything. Your name has been cleared. Arabella stiffened. What? Constance confessed? Nathaniel said. She was trying to blackmail me. But I had already discovered the truth. I had the letters examined by experts. They were forgeries, Arabella. And when I confronted Constance, she admitted everything. Why did she do it? Because she wanted to be Duchess of Ashbourne, Nathaniel said bitterly. She thought if she got rid of you, I would marry her. And I was fool enough to believe her lies. And what happened to her? She's in prison. She'll likely be transported to Australia. It's not enough, I know. At least she's being punished. Arabella didn't know how to feel. I'm glad she's being punished. But that doesn't change anything between us, Nathaniel. I know, Nathaniel said. I know. And I will regret it for the rest of my life. But Arabella, please. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking for a chance to know my son. We don't need your money, James said sharply. Are you? Nathaniel looked around the village. This is fine. He should be growing up in Ashbourne Hall, receiving the finest education. He's the heir to a dukedom. He's happy, Arabella said fiercely. He has a home, a family, people who love him. Then let me prove it with actions, Nathaniel pleaded. Let me stay in the village. Let me get to know Lucian slowly. Arabella looked at James, silently asking for his opinion. James's jaw was tight, but after a long moment he sighed. It's not my decision to make, he said quietly. Lucian is your son, Arabella. Arabella looked down at Lucian. He was so young, too young to understand, but he would grow up someday. He would have questions. Maybe he deserved the chance to know his real father. You can stay in the village, Arabella said finally, but you will not approach Lucian without my permission. You will not tell him who you are until I decide he's ready. And you will respect the life we've built. If you cause any problems, you leave immediately. Do you understand? Yes, Nathaniel said immediately. Thank you, Arabella. I promise I won't let you down. You already did, Arabella said coldly. This is your chance to prove you won't do it again. She took Lucian's hand and walked away, James following. She could feel Nathaniel's eyes on her back, but she didn't look back. That night, after Lucian was asleep, Arabella sat by the fire with James. Are you all right? James asked. I don't know, Arabella admitted, seeing him again. It brought back everything. Did it bring back feelings? James asked quietly. Do you still love him? I don't know, she said honestly. I hate him for what he did, but I also feel sorry for him. He looks so broken. He should be broken, James said with an edge to his voice. He destroyed you. I didn't forgive him, Arabella said. I just couldn't deny him the chance to know Lucian. Even though Lucian doesn't need him, James turned to look at her. I love that boy, Arabella. I love him as if he were my own. I've been there for everything. Not Nathaniel. Me. I know, Arabella said, taking his hand. And Lucian loves you too. Nothing will change that, won't it? James asked. What happens when Nathaniel tells him the truth? What if Lucian decides he wants to go with him? What if we lose him? We won't lose him, Arabella said firmly. You don't know that, James said. He's a duke, one of the most powerful men in England. We're just a country doctor and a woman with no legal standing. If he decides to take Lucian, what can we do? Arabella had no answer. She simply held James's hand tighter and stared into the fire. For the following weeks, Nathaniel kept his word. He rented a room at the village inn and made no attempt to approach Lucian without permission. But his presence was felt everywhere. The villagers whispered about the Duke. They stared at Arabella with new eyes. Some were sympathetic. Others were judgmental. Nathaniel, meanwhile, was doing everything to ingratiate himself with the community. He donated money to repair the church roof. He paid for supplies for the school. He hired local men to improve the roads. He was charming and generous, and slowly the villagers began to warm to him. The Duke is such a fine gentleman, Mrs. Henderson said to Arabella one day. So generous. You must be very proud to be his wife. Arabella wanted to scream. She wanted to tell Mrs. Henderson about the night Nathaniel had cast her out, but she held her tongue. After a week, Nathaniel approached Arabella. May I speak with you? Privately? You are speaking with me. I mean properly. There are things I need to say. I don't want to hear your explanations. Please, Nathaniel said, and there was such raw emotion in his voice that Arabella stopped. Just give me an hour, and if after that you'll still want me to leave, I will. Arabella looked at him. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, rumpled clothes. 1 hour, she said finally. Tomorrow afternoon. Thank you, Nathaniel breathed. The next day, Arabella went to the inn. When she entered Nathaniel's room, he was sitting by the window, staring out at the sea, looking utterly defeated. Thank you for coming, he said. Please, sit. I don't want tea, Arabella said, remaining standing. You have 1 hour. Start talking. Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair. I don't know where to begin. Begin with why you believed her, Arabella said. Why you trusted a woman you barely knew over your wife. Nathaniel flinched. Because I was insecure, he said quietly. Because I never believed I deserved you. Arabella blinked in surprise. What? You were so good, Arabella, Nathaniel continued, his voice thick with emotion. So kind, so pure, and was none of those things. I was arrogant, selfish. When you looked at me with such love, I couldn't understand it. I kept waiting for you to realize your mistake. And when Constance showed me those letters, part of me almost felt relieved. Because it confirmed what I had always believed, that I wasn't good enough for you. So you pushed me away, Arabella said. I was a coward, Nathaniel admitted. I thought if I kept you at a distance, it would hurt less when you eventually left me. That's insane, Arabella said. I loved you, Nathaniel. I know that now, Nathaniel said, tears streaming down his face. And it kills me. Because I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. You didn't just destroy us, Arabella said. You nearly destroyed Lucian. Your son almost died because of you. I know, Nathaniel whispered. I have to live with that. Every day I remember. Every night I lie awake imagining you cold and alone carrying my child. It haunts me. Good, Arabella said harshly. You should be haunted. I am, Nathaniel said. But please understand, I never meant for things to go that way. I thought the estate was habitable. I was told it was comfortable. I never imagined ... double quotes. You never bothered to check, Arabella interrupted. You were so eager to get rid of me that you didn't verify the condition of the place you were sending me to. You're right, Nathaniel said, sinking into a chair. I was cruel and careless, but please believe that I never wanted you dead. When I discovered what had really happened, when I went to that estate and saw the ruin it was, I vomited, Arabella. I stood in that crumbling house and vomited because I realized what I had done. Arabella was silent, processing his words. Learning it had been negligence rather than malice didn't make it better, but it did make it different. What happened with Constance? She asked finally. About a year after I sent you away, I started having doubts, Nathaniel said. Constance kept pushing me to marry her, but I couldn't. Something held me back. Then she made a mistake. She mentioned something about one of the letters that she shouldn't have known unless she had written it herself. So I had the letters examined by an expert in forgery, and he confirmed they were fakes. Very good fakes, but fakes. The handwriting was similar to yours, but there were inconsistencies. When I confronted Constance with proof, she broke down and confessed everything. She had hired someone to forge the letters. She had planted them in your desk. She had even paid Lord Pemberton to be seen with you in public. Lord Pemberton was in on it? No, Nathaniel said quickly. He had no idea. He thought he was just being friendly at Constance's request. He was horrified when he learned the truth. He's actually been helping me search for you, and now you found me, Arabella said. What do you want, Nathaniel? I want a chance to make things right, Nathaniel said, standing and crossing to her. I want to know my son. I want to provide for you both. And yes, if I'm being honest, I want you back. I want my wife back. But I know I don't deserve any of that. You can't earn it, Arabella said flatly. What you did is unforgivable. I don't expect things to go back to the way they were, Nathaniel said desperately. But maybe we could build something new. I've changed, Arabella. I'm not the same man. Prove it, Arabella challenged. Show me you're worthy of knowing Lucian. How? Nathaniel asked. Tell me how and I'll do it. Start by respecting my boundaries, Arabella said. Lucian doesn't know who you are, and I want to keep it that way for now. But you can spend time with him. Get to know him. And if after a few months I think you've proven yourself, then maybe I'll tell him the truth. A few months? Nathaniel looked pained. I've already missed 5 years. Then you should have thought of that before you threw us away, Arabella said coldly. This is my offer. Take it or leave it. Nathaniel was silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. All right. I'll do it your way. Thank you, Arabella. Don't thank me yet, Arabella said, turning to leave. You haven't earned anything. She turned to go, but Nathaniel's voice stopped her. Arabella, she looked back. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I never stopped loving you. Even when I thought you had betrayed me, I never stopped loving you. Arabella felt something crack inside her chest. Love isn't enough, Nathaniel. Love without trust, without respect, ... it's nothing. It's poison. And with that, she walked out. Over the next few weeks, Nathaniel began his careful campaign. He didn't approach Lucian directly, but he made himself visible in the village. He helped fishermen repair their boats. He assisted farmers with their harvest. He became a regular presence, buying rounds at the tavern, listening to stories. And slowly he began to interact with Lucian in casual ways. He would be at the beach when Lucian and James went to collect shells. He would be at the market when Arabella brought Lucian shopping. He never forced conversation, never pushed, but he was always there, always friendly. That man is nice, Lucian said one day after Nathaniel had helped him retrieve a kite from a tree. He tells good stories about London. It sounds amazing, Mama. Can we go to London someday? Arabella's heart clenched. Maybe someday, darling. James watched these interactions with growing unease. Arabella could see the tension in his shoulders, the worry in his eyes. Nathaniel had advantages James could never match: wealth, status, exotic stories of a world beyond their village. And Lucian, innocent and curious, was naturally drawn to this fascinating stranger. One afternoon, about a month after Nathaniel's arrival, he approached Arabella with a request. I'd like to take Lucian out on a boat, he said, just for an hour or two. I've hired one of the local fishermen. I thought Lucian might enjoy it. Arabella's first instinct was to refuse, but she had promised to give Nathaniel a chance. James will come too, she said firmly, and I'll be watching from the shore. Of course, Nathaniel agreed quickly. The day of the boat trip was beautiful, one of those perfect summer days when the sky was impossibly blue and the sea was calm as glass. Arabella stood on the beach, watching as the small fishing boat pulled away with Lucian, James, and Nathaniel aboard. Lucian was laughing, his face bright with excitement. Everything was fine for the first hour. The boat stayed close to shore. Arabella could hear Lucian's laughter carrying across the water, but then the wind picked up suddenly. The calm sea began to chop. The boat rocked, and Arabella saw Lucian stumble. She gasped, and then Lucian fell overboard. Arabella screamed, already running toward the water. She saw James lunge for Lucian, saw him miss. She saw Nathaniel without hesitation dive into the water after his son. The seconds felt like hours. Arabella was waist-deep in the water, screaming Lucian's name. She saw Nathaniel surface, swimming toward where Lucian had gone under. She saw him dive again. And then he surfaced, and he had Lucian in his arms. Nathaniel swam back to the boat with powerful strokes, holding Lucian's head above water. James hauled them both back into the boat. By the time they reached shore, Arabella was sobbing. Nathaniel carried Lucian onto the beach and laid him gently on the sand. The boy was coughing, spitting up seawater, but he was breathing. "He's all right," James said, checking him over. "He just swallowed some water. He's going to be fine." Arabella fell to her knees beside her son, pulling him into her arms. "I'm okay, Mama," Lucian said hoarsely. "The man saved me. He jumped in and saved me." Arabella looked up at Nathaniel, who was standing soaked and shivering, watching them with profound relief and love. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving him. He's my son," Nathaniel said simply. "I would die for him." That night, after Lucian was safely in bed, Arabella sat with James by the fire. "He saved him," James finally said, without hesitation. "He could have drowned, but he didn't think twice." "I know," Arabella said quietly. "That's what a father does," James continued. "Arabella, I think it's time to tell Lucian the truth. He deserves to know. And Nathaniel has proven himself. He's been patient, respectful, and today he saved Lucian's life." "James, I love you," James interrupted. "I love you and Lucian more than anything. But I'm not blind. Nathaniel is Lucian's father. And maybe Lucian deserves to have both of us in his life." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to tell Lucian the truth," James said gently. "And then you need to decide what you want. Do you want to stay here with me? Or go back to London with Nathaniel? Either way, I'll support you. Because I love you." "I am happy," Arabella protested. "Here, with you. Are you?" James asked. "Or are you just comfortable?" "Safe. There's a difference." The question hung in the air, and Arabella didn't have an answer. The next day, Arabella asked Nathaniel to come to the cottage. It was time. Time to tell Lucian the truth. They sat in the small living room, Lucian between them on the sofa. James stood by the fireplace. "Lucian," Arabella began, taking her son's hands. "There's something I need to tell you. Something important." "Am I in trouble?" Lucian asked. "No, darling. You remember the man who saved you yesterday, Mr. Blackthorne?" "He was very brave," Lucian said. "He was brave," Arabella agreed. "And there's a reason. Lucian, Mr. Blackthorne is your father, your real father." Lucian looked confused. "But Papa James is my father." "Papa James loves you very much," Arabella said carefully, "and he's been like a father to you. But Mr. Blackthorne is your father by blood. He's the man I was married to before you were born." Lucian looked between them. "So I have two fathers?" "In a way, yes." "Why didn't you tell me before?" Lucian asked, hurt in his voice. "Because it's complicated," Arabella said. "Mr. Blackthorne and I had problems. We were apart for a long time, but he's been looking for us. And now he wants to be part of your life." Lucian looked at Nathaniel. "Are you really my father?" "Yes," Nathaniel said, his voice thick with emotion. "I am. And I'm so sorry I wasn't there when you were born, but I'm here now. And if you'll give me a chance, I'd like to be your father." "But what about Papa James?" Lucian asked worriedly. "Always," James said, crossing the room and kneeling beside Lucian. "I'll always be your Papa, James. Nothing will change that. I love you, Lucian." Lucian thought for a moment. Then he looked at Nathaniel. "Can I call you Papa too?" Nathaniel's face crumpled, tears streaming down. "You can call me whatever you want." "I think I'll call you Papa Nathaniel," Lucian decided. "So I don't get confused. Is that okay?" "That's perfect," Nathaniel said, pulling Lucian into a hug. Arabella watched them, father and son together for the first time, and felt her heart breaking and healing simultaneously. Over the following weeks, Lucian spent more time with Nathaniel. They went riding. Nathaniel had bought Lucian a pony. They went fishing. They read together. Nathaniel told Lucian stories about his family, about the grand estate that would one day be his. And slowly, Arabella watched her son being drawn into a world she had left behind. Lucian started asking questions about London, about living in a big house, about learning to fence like a gentleman. "He's seducing him," James said one night, unable to hide his bitterness. with promises of a grand life. You don't need to compete, Arabella said. But even she could hear the doubt in her voice. One evening, about 2 months after Nathaniel's arrival, he came with a proposal. I need to return to London, he said. I've been away too long, but I'd like to take Lucian with me. Just for a few weeks. I want to show him his heritage. Absolutely not, Arabella said immediately. Our son, Nathaniel corrected gently. He has a right to know his family. He's 5 years old. Then come with us, Nathaniel said. Both of you. Come to London. Stay at Ashbourne Hall. Let Lucian see both worlds. I can't go back there, Arabella said, panic rising. Your name has been cleared, Nathaniel said. Everyone knows the truth now. Society knows you were innocent. I don't want their sympathy. Then what do you want? Nathaniel asked. Tell me, Arabella. It was the same question James had asked. What did she want? I want Lucian to be happy, she said finally. Then let him see both worlds, Nathaniel said. Let him understand his heritage. And then when he's older, he can choose. But don't make the choice for him. Don't limit his future because of what I did to you. The words hit home. Was that what she was doing? I need to think about it, she said. That night she talked to James. What do you think? She asked. James was quiet for a long time. I think Lucian deserves to see London. He deserves to know his heritage. And I think you deserve to go back too. To face your past. Come with us, Arabella said. Please, I can't, James said gently. You have patience here, and this is something you need to do on your own. You need to face Nathaniel's world and decide if there's any part of it you want back. I don't want any of it back, Arabella insisted. I want this. I want you. Then prove it, James said, taking her hands. Go to London. See what Nathaniel is offering, and then come back to me. If you still want to. If. Arabella felt panic rising. I'm saying that I love you enough to let you go, James said. If you come back, I'll know it's because you chose me, not because you had no other option. I do want it, Arabella said, tears streaming. Then prove it, James repeated. Go to London, and then come home to me. 2 weeks later, Arabella and Lucian were in a carriage heading to London, with Nathaniel riding alongside. Lucian was excited, chattering constantly. Arabella felt numb. She had said goodbye to James that morning. He had held her tight, kissed her forehead, and whispered, Come back to me. I will, she had promised. But now, as they drew closer to London, Arabella wasn't sure of anything anymore. Ashbourne Hall was exactly as she remembered. Grand, imposing, cold. The servants lined up to greet them. Welcome home, Your Grace, the butler said. Your Grace. She had almost forgotten that title. Lucian was awestruck. Mama, this is amazing. Is this really where I'm from? The library, the portrait gallery, the stables, the gardens, and Lucian loved all of it. Can we stay here, Mama? He asked one evening. Can we live here? It's so much better than the cottage. The words cut Arabella to the core. Better? There's so much space, Lucian said. Papa Nathaniel says I can have my own pony, and I can learn to fence. It's amazing, Mama. What about Papa James? Arabella asked quietly. Don't you miss him? Lucian's face fell. I do miss him. But can't he come here too? Can't we all live here together? It doesn't work that way, darling. But even as she said it, she wondered, could it work that way? One evening, Nathaniel asked Arabella to join him in the library. They sat by the fire, and for the first time in years, it felt almost like old times. Thank you for coming, Nathaniel said. I know how hard this must be. It is hard, Arabella admitted. Being here brings back so many memories. Arabella, Nathaniel said, setting down his wine and turning to face her. I need to ask you something. Do you love him, James? Arabella was quiet. Yes, she finally said. I do love him. He saved my life. He's been good to me and Lucian. But do you love him the way you loved me? Nathaniel pressed. With passion? With your whole heart? I don't know, Arabella admitted. Okay, what I feel for James is different. It's quieter, steadier. It feels safe. Safe, Nathaniel repeated. But it's safe enough. Arabella, I still love you. I never stopped. And I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm asking for one anyway. Come back to me. Be my wife again. Let's raise Lucian together. Let's be a family. I don't know if I can trust you again, Arabella said. You destroyed me once. You don't, Nathaniel said honestly. You have to take a leap of faith. Just like I'm taking a leap of faith that you can forgive me. And what about James? Arabella asked. He loves Lucian. James can still be part of Lucian's life, Nathaniel said. We can visit Scotland. Lucian can spend summers there. I'm not trying to erase James. I'm just trying to be a father to my son, and a husband to my wife. Arabella stood and walked to the window. I need time, she said. I need to think. Take all the time you need, Nathaniel said. I'll wait. That night, Arabella lay awake in the bed that had once been hers. She thought about James, about his gentle smile, his steady presence, the life they had built. And she thought about Nathaniel, about the passion they had once shared. She thought about Lucian, about what was best for him. He was happy here, but he also loved James. How could she choose? The next morning she called both Nathaniel and James. She had sent for him, and he had come immediately to the library. Lucian was with his tutor. I've made a decision, Arabella said, looking between the two men, about what happens next. Both men leaned forward. Lucian will spend half the year here in London with Nathaniel, Arabella said, learning what he needs to know to be a duke. And half the year in Scotland with James, learning what it means to be a good man. And I will divide my time between both places, because Lucian needs both of you, and I need time. Time to figure out what I want. Time to heal. Time to decide if I can ever trust again. That's not a decision, Nathaniel protested. That's a postponement. Maybe, Arabella agreed, but it's the best I can do right now. I'm not ready to choose. But I know that Lucian deserves both his fathers, and I deserve time to figure out who I am now. James stood and crossed to her, taking her hands. If that's what you need, then that's what you'll have, he said. I love you, Arabella, and I'll wait as long as it takes. Nathaniel looked like he wanted to argue, but after a long moment he nodded. All right, we'll try it your way. For Lucian's sake, for all our sakes, Arabella corrected. And so began their new arrangement. It wasn't perfect. It was complicated and messy and sometimes painful, but it worked. Lucian thrived, growing up with the best of both worlds, the education and opportunities of being heir to a dukedom, and the simple joys and genuine love of life in a small Scottish village. Arabella spent her time between both places, slowly healing, slowly learning to trust again. Sometimes she stayed with Nathaniel in London, and they talked late into the night, rebuilding their relationship piece by piece. Sometimes she stayed with James in Scotland, and they walked on the beach and sat by the fire, their love quiet but steady. And slowly over time, Arabella began to understand what she wanted. Not safety or passion alone, but both. Not the past or the future, but a present that honored both. Not one man or the other, but a life that included both the men who loved her and the son they both adored. It wasn't a traditional ending. It wasn't what society would approve of. But it was theirs, and it was real, and it was enough. 5 years after Nathaniel had found them in that small Scottish village, Arabella stood on the beach at Portmere, watching Lucian play in the waves. He was 10 years old now, tall and strong, with his father's dark hair and gray eyes, but with a kindness and joy that was all his own. James stood beside her, his arm around her waist. He's grown so much, he said. He has, Arabella agreed. Thanks to you. Thanks to both of you. No, James said, turning to look at her. Thanks to you. You're the one who held us all together. You're the one who made this work. Arabella smiled, leaning into his warmth. In a few days they would return to London, where Nathaniel was waiting, where Lucian would continue his studies. It wasn't a perfect life, but it was hers. And after everything she had been through, after all the pain and betrayal and loss, she had learned that perfect wasn't what mattered. What mattered was love. What mattered was family. What mattered was choosing, every day, to keep moving forward. Mama, Papa James, come play, Lucian called from the water, waving at them. Coming, Arabella called back, taking James's hand. They ran down to the water together, laughing, and for that moment everything was exactly as it should be. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters. We have many more tales of passion, betrayal, and redemption waiting for you. Leave a like to support our work and help us bring more stories to life. Share in the comments what you would do if you were in Arabella's place. Would you have forgiven Nathaniel? Would you have chosen James? Or would you have found your own path just as she did? Your opinion matters to us, and it might even inspire future stories. Thank you for joining us in the shadows of the marquee, where love and drama intertwine in the most unexpected ways.